The lawyer barely glanced at me when he slid the wrinkled envelope across the table. "To Nathan Cole," he said flatly. "That's all." My cousin snickered. Liam had just been handed the penthouse overlooking Manhattan. Olivia got the 80-foot yacht. Dylan was gifted full control of my grandfather's $27 million logistics company. I got paper. I heard Olivia whisper behind me, "Maybe it's a grocery coupon for emotional strength." Laughter erupted. I didn't flinch. I opened it. Inside was a single folded train ticket. Dated for the next morning. Departing Zurich. Destination Rome. First class. Private car. No note. No explanation. Just a silent invitation. The laughter around me faded as they realized I wasn't reacting the way they wanted. I slipped the ticket into my pocket, stood up and nodded. "Thanks," I said. And I left. That night I packed lightly, one bag. One suit. One question. Why did the man who built an empire give me nothing but a train ride? The next morning I boarded the train. Car 7, seat 1A. Empty. Luxurious. Quiet. I stared out the window as we slipped across the Alps. Hours passed in silence. No answers. Until we pulled into Rome. The train stopped. The platform was nearly empty. But there, by the exit ramp, stood a man in a black suit, holding a sign with my name on it. And as I approached, he stepped forward and said 6 words that made my jaw drop. "Sir, your grandfather said, begin now." Begin now. That's all he said. No explanation. No key. No folder. Just 6 words, delivered with total calm, as if I were supposed to understand everything already. The driver opened the door to a black Mercedes. No plates. No logos. Inside was a sealed envelope and a leather-bound journal with my initials engraved in gold, NC. I didn't touch the envelope yet. "Where are we going?" I asked. The driver didn't look at me. "Villa Aurelia. Your grandfather's instructions." We drove through the heart of Rome, past fountains and tourists, until the city thinned and the streets began to whisper of old money. The villa sat behind iron gates. Ivory stone. Tall cypress trees. Like a place you only see on postcards, or in dreams. The gates opened without a word. Inside everything felt curated. A long table was set for one. Fresh espresso. A map of Italy spread wide beneath a glass plate. I finally opened the envelope. It held a deed. To this villa. In my name. No strings. No explanation. And one more note, handwritten in my grandfather's sharp, slanted script. "You're the only one who ever listened. The real inheritance isn't what they saw. It's what you'll find underneath this house." I froze. Underneath? I looked up at the marble floor. And suddenly, for the first time since the funeral, I felt like I had been chosen for something much bigger than a yacht. I stood alone in the center of a villa I now apparently owned, staring at the floor like it might peel open and give me answers. "Underneath this house," he'd written. What the hell did he mean? I started walking the halls. Everything was pristine, almost untouched. Oil paintings. Velvet armchairs. Shelves of old books, some in Latin, some with his handwriting in the margins. This wasn't just a house. It was a vault. I found the cellar key taped behind a loose brick in the fireplace. It was labeled Via Subterraneo. The staircase into the basement was narrow and cold. I descended with a flashlight from my bag. At the bottom was a stone corridor. No lights. Just the sound of my own breath echoing. At the end a steel door. Fingerprint scanner. Green light. Click. Inside was a library. Not of books, but files. Documents. Bound black folders labeled in gold. Olivia. Liam. Dylan. Cole Legacy Trust, Hidden Holdings. European shells. It hit me like a wave. These weren't memories. They were secrets. My grandfather kept detailed records of every dirty investment, every offshore asset, every lie my cousins were built on. And in the center of the room, a desk with a letter addressed to me. "Nathan, you were never the loudest. You were the one who watched, listened, remembered. If you want justice, this is where it begins." I looked at the files again, and for the first time in my life, I held power they couldn't laugh at. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the desk surrounded by silent power, folders filled with asset trails, bribery memos, backdated contracts. Every success my cousins bragged about had a thread I could pull. And I had the gloves. One folder had me frozen. Liam's company merger, the one he used to launch his self-made status? Fraud. My grandfather had signed off on everything, but also secretly recorded Liam bribing an Italian banker. In the back of the file was a USB stick, labeled, Insurance. I plugged it into the villa's old computer system. Video footage loaded. Liam. In Rome. Handing over a duffel bag of euros. Saying, as long as the SEC never sees this, we're good. I leaned back. This wasn't just inheritance. This was leverage. That's when the lights in the villa flickered. Then died. For a second, silence. Then the sound of a car. Tires rolling over gravel. I closed the laptop. Grabbed the folders. Moved quickly through the back hallway toward the hidden panic room the journal mentioned, page 12 marked in red, for emergencies. I entered the code etched into the journal's spine. The steel door hissed open. I slipped inside. Locked it. Through the hidden monitor I saw the front gates open. 3 men in suits. Unmarked car. One of them? Dylan. Holding bolt cutters. He'd found me. And he looked terrified not of me, but of what he knew I had. I watched Dylan step out of the car, glancing over his shoulder like he was afraid someone had followed him. He didn't knock. He went straight for the breaker box by the garden wall, like he'd done this before. Killed the power. Signaled the others. 2 men followed. Not family. Not legal. Hired. My heartbeat didn't spike. I stayed calm. Because I had everything I needed. Inside the panic room was a satellite uplink. My grandfather had thought of everything. I uploaded a backup of every folder to a secure server. A timed email setup blinked. Released to media in 24 hours unless cancelled. Insurance. I watched on the monitor as Dylan entered the villa with the other 2. He was sweating. He didn't want to find me. He wanted to find the files. I spoke through the panic room's intercom, calm and measured. Dylan. You really should have read grandfather's will more carefully. He froze. Turned. Nathan, he called. Look, we can talk. I didn't know they'd send guys, okay? I panicked. No, I said. You tried to bury me. But you forgot something. What? He whispered. I zoomed the camera feed in on his face. You don't hold the story anymore. I do. He cursed and ran upstairs yelling, find the server. But by the time they opened the office door they realized. The laptop was gone. And so was I. Rome at night isn't quiet. But when you're running with 3 different sets of encrypted documents in your backpack and your cousin's men behind you, it feels like the whole world is holding its breath. I ditched the villa through the side garden and caught a taxi by the fountains. Spoke fluent enough Italian to pass as just another tourist too drunk to walk. Destination? Termini Station. But I wasn't catching a train. I met someone. My grandfather's lawyer, Enzo. Older man, sharp suit, eyes that didn't blink too often. We sat in a quiet cafe near the platform. Did you find it? He asked. I handed him a flash drive. He smiled. Then I can give you this. He slid over a small box. Inside was a ring. My grandfather's. Underneath it, a folded piece of paper. Activate Cole Trust Omega. Enzo explained. My grandfather didn't just hide assets. He redirected the real empire years ago into a trust only I could legally unlock. My cousins got the flashy leftovers. I had been given everything else. But only if I followed through. If they attack you publicly, Enzo said, we release the files. If they try to bribe you, decline once. And if they come to Rome, he leaned closer. Let them. Why? He stood to leave, slipping on gloves. Because the will wasn't the end of his plan. It was the beginning. I looked at the ring again. And quietly said, then let the game begin. 2 days later they arrived. All 3, Olivia, Dylan, Liam. They landed in Rome under fake names, but I knew. Enzo had eyes everywhere. By the time they walked into the hotel lobby, I'd already watched them argue in the car for 45 minutes on surveillance feed. They didn't come to make peace. They came to make me disappear. What they didn't know. They weren't chasing a scared little cousin. They were walking into a stage. Everything from the villa's documents to their plane tickets had been mirrored. Enzo's team sent anonymous tips to international fraud investigators. The SEC, Europol, and more. But the finale? That was personal. I reserved a private lounge in the same hotel they were staying in. Had a bellhop deliver 3 envelopes to their rooms. Each held a photo of the USB stick. And the phrase, one copy remains with me. Meet me. Midnight. When they walked in, the tension was nuclear. Nathan, Olivia hissed, you don't know what you're doing. Oh, I said, smiling faintly. I think I do. Liam slammed his palm on the table. You release those files, we all go down. I leaned forward. No. You go down. I was never part of the crime. Dylan's face cracked. What do you want? I slid over the terms. and said 6 words that flipped the entire family tree. Sign here or Rome ends everything. They signed. Not because they trusted me, but because they had no choice. The papers handed them over everything they thought they'd won. Liam forfeited all shares of the penthouse and yacht. Olivia gave up her board position at the company. Dylan? He relinquished his 30% stake and handed over the keys to the offshore accounts he thought no one knew about. In return, I agreed to delay the release of the files for 72 hours. Not cancel, delay. That night, I boarded a train back to the countryside villa, ring on my finger, USB in my pocket, and the ghost of my grandfather sitting beside me in silence. When I arrived, a package was waiting. Inside, a handwritten note. Well done. You held the line. Now break the bloodline. And beneath that, a single instruction. Release Omega Protocol. I smiled. Across the globe at that exact moment, emails launched. Whistleblower files. Corruption reports. Secret audits. The empire my cousins thought they'd owned, burned down from inside. And the Cole Trust? Transferred fully into my name. Not just the money. Not just the company. The legacy. That day, 3 billionaires became blacklisted fugitives overnight. And me? I became the man they laughed at, the name they mocked, the one they tried to bury with a train ticket. But grandfather knew. He didn't leave me scraps. He gave me a match. And I burned the whole kingdom to ash.